Rugby Championship 2021. The second game of the weekend is going to be the Springboks up against the Pumas. It should be a pretty interesting matchup. We'll go through the squads, some of the stats, predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I'm not sure how South African fans are feeling about it. It's a very quick turnaround from playing that British and Irish Lions series. So it's kind of 1 week you're celebrating, probably having a few beers, and then you're straight back into it for the kind of, the nitty gritty of the Rugby Championship. So yeah, it's going to be a quick turnaround. They have made a bunch of changes, have the Springboks and the Pumas. Kind of mixed in terms of their preparation time, kind of limited, as Mario Ledesma mentioned in kind of some of the pre-match press conferences. So it's not going to be the ideal prep for them, but we saw that last year when they had less than ideal prep and managed to knock off the All Blacks. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how this one goes. In recent times, it has been the Springboks over the Pumas, 4 from the last 5, including the most recent one, which was in South Africa in 2019, which was 24 points to 18. The last win, I think, was in Argentina a couple of years ago, 2018, I think it would have been. And that was 32 points to 19. So that was when South Africa were really trying to kind of find their feet under a new coaching setup. So, yeah, for the most part, average score 33-21. It's been relatively comfortable for the Boks. But 33-21 is not like an absolute hiding. It's kind of a comfortable margin without being hugely lopsided. Anyway, the lineups, I'll put them in the description so you guys can check them out for yourselves as well. But as I mentioned, the Springboks have made a bunch of changes. There's an all-new front row. Nché, Joseph Dweba, and Wilco Louw all come into the side. So there's no Malherba, there's no Bongi and Bonambi, and there's no Stephen Kitsoff. Those guys get a week off after, as we mentioned, kind of a pretty grueling Lions series. But we saw Ox in the first game. We saw Dweba in the South Africa A game. And Wilco has been in phenomenal form up in England. So, yeah, I can't imagine these guys will be a huge step back from those starting guys. It is the same locks, though, with Eben and Lood in the second row. And those guys were putting in some big shifts. Eben with that big physical presence of his. And Lood getting through a heap of tackles. I think he made like 15 out of 16 in that final Lions game. I think he was the top tackler for the Springboks from memory. He was certainly up there anyway, which is great to see because he's had kind of a mixed period in terms of his fitness in the last couple of years. Kolisi, Smith, and Wiese are the back rowers. So Kwagga comes in for Mostert, who is getting a kind of earned rest this week as well. Wiese continues on at number 8. It's good to see him kind of developing in that box jersey. He's obviously not the finished product yet, and as I've mentioned before, he's got pretty big shoes to fill with doing Formula. But yeah, for his kind of early international career, I think he's doing all right, finding his way. And Kolisi continues on at captain in the number 6 jersey, and yeah, he's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal. Like that guy still, for some reason, has doubters, but I think he silenced most of them in Game 2 and Game 3 of that tour. And even Game 1 of the Lions tour when they lost, he was still kind of one of the more effective ball carriers the Springboks had. So, yeah, man, good to see the kind of Captain Fantastic is still there. Reinach and Jantjies are the 9-10 combo. So Elton is recalled to the squad. Pollard is getting a rest. Jantjies is a guy who's always under the microscope, so he could certainly use a big game. He's certainly got the backing of the coaches. They kind of talked up how it was between him and Steyn as to whether one of them played in that third game. They ended up going with Mornay because he's literally been there and done it before. But otherwise, they've still got 100% faith in Elton. And man, like I love a lot of the stuff Elton can do. Personally, I'm not convinced he's ever quite hit his full strappings at international level, but man, at every other level I've seen him play, the guy can set the world alight. So people who say bad things about him, I'm not sure I would go that far, for sure. Elton's got a whole bag of tricks, and I'm hoping he has a good game and keeps people kind of quiet. He's got Frans, Steyn, and Jesse Kriel outside him at 12 and 13, so Frans, especially with that new 50-22 law, could have a bit of a field day with that big old boot of his. And Jesse Kriel's kind of been relegated to outside the 23 with Nyakane being in the form like world-class form, but good to see him get a crack back as well. Fassi, Nkosi, and Willemse is an all-new back three. So they really are ringing a lot of changes. Whole new midfield, whole new back three. So there's no Pimpi, no Colby, no no De Allende, no Louw. All these guys getting a rest after we mentioned kind of a pretty grueling period. They still have that kind of bomb squad front row with Marx, Nyakane, and Koch. And those guys certainly made the British and Irish Lions' lives pretty miserable, especially at scrum time. Ori comes in as your lock replacement. Van Staden is there, along with Dan du Preez as kind of loose forward replacements. Good to see Dan du Preez get a crack. So it is still a 6-2 split. You can expect Dan du Preez to do a fair bit of ball carrying. I'm not sure what position they're going to bring him on, but they've got Van Staden and Dan du Preez, so... Kolisi, I think they've tended to like to sub after about an hour, so he may be one. But I expected to see Dan du Preez doing a fair bit of kind of blockbusting, ball carrying. I just kind of skimped over the back three, but man, Fassi and Nkosi, that's like proper lightning wingers. And Willemse with the likes of Frans, Steyn, and Elton, Jantjies kind of makes an all playmaking spine of the team. But anyway, we'll see how these guys go. Morné Steyn is there, Herschel Jantjies is there as your back replacements as well. So it's good that you got guys like Jesse Kriel who can play a number of positions, Damian Willemse, Fassi, a lot of guys who are pretty versatile in case they do have anybody go down early. For the Pumas, they've kept things relatively stable from that side that beat Wales in their last kind of outing a month or so ago. Titus Chaparro, Montoya, and Cordella are the front row, so that's the same front row. And they scrummed really well over in Wales. Montoya has been captain for a while now, and there's still talk in the press conferences about Augustin Krivy, but he's not ranked amongst the kind of top two guys by Mario Ledesma anymore, and Montoya has been in cracking form for ages, so I kind of don't blame him for picking Montoya as much as we all love watching Krivy play. Petty and Kremer are your locks. Petty wasn't really able to kind of disrupt the Welsh line-out as we maybe would have thought. I don't think he nicked any Welsh ball, but he will be a bit of a threat. I think the Boks did lose a couple of line-outs against the Lions, which is a little bit of an area of their game they've not quite been able to keep up with that World Cup standard, which they set, where they virtually lost no line-outs. I think it was like 1 or 2 in the whole World Cup. So the line-outs are still kind of coming together for the Springboks, so maybe that's an area the Pumas can get some pay. Kremer is certainly a big physical unit. They've got Matera, Issa, and Bruni as their back rowers, and that's a very, very classy back row as well. Everybody knows Issa's physicality. Matera has kind of got that all-round skill set. He can pilfer, he can offload, he can ball carry, but I mean, of the three of them, it was Bruni who's the least kind of well-known, I would say, of the three guys, who was the most probably effective ball in hand against Wales. Had like 50-odd run meters, had 6 defenders beaten. I know Wales didn't have their British and Irish Lions, but still, man, Bruni was really phenomenal from number 8. So him head-to-head against Wiese will be fascinating. Interestingly, one of the changes they have made is Escuda starts at 9. Kubeli is not in the 23. And that was in Spanish, but with Google translating the subtitles, I think Mario kind of said that Felipe Escuda is maybe there to match a little bit more of that physicality they can expect from the Boks. I think he is a bit bigger physically than Kubeli, not hugely, but maybe that's part of it, or maybe that's Google Translate kind of put me down the garden path. I don't know. Nico Sanchez is still there at 10. He was instrumental in that result against the All Blacks a year ago, so he can be that kind of all-in-one playmaker, point scorer. De La Fuente and Chocobares is the same midfield that played against Wales. Moroni, Delhi, and Carreras, the same back three. So essentially, it's the same team that beat Wales, except that they've promoted the substitute scrum half to start, and they've brought in Bertrand to replace Kubeli. So Kubeli, who started that game, is not in the 23 whatsoever. De La Fuente may be able to have a bit of a good time against the Springboks midfield, because he's quicker than maybe you give him credit for, but he's not now and out pace guy, he's not now and out power guy, but he is a very clever player, good playmaker. So not sure against Frans Steyn. Frans Steyn's certainly slowed down in years. I'm not sure if De La Fuente's got the gas to get around him, but Anyway, we will see. Bosch, Muzio, and Medrano are the replacement forwards, like front rowers. Muzio, I don't know him, but apparently he's in his late 30s and plays in France. He's their loose head replacement. He'll be on debut, so certainly a veteran, but a inexperienced guy at international level. Lavanini and Alemano, so two big units on the bench. They've gone for a traditional 5-3 split, but Lavanini and Alemano are both kind of big guys. Lavanini especially is a very large human. Alemano can kind of cover lock or loose forwards if needs be, and so can Kremer if they decide to bring on Alemano. Kremer can always drop to the back row. Bertrand Miotti and Cancellieri, like I mentioned, Cancellieri is one of the other guys who wasn't playing in that squad against Wales. It was Imhoff for that one, but Cancellieri is also a very good guy to bring on. Whether Miotti gets many minutes kind of remains to be seen, because Sanchez has tended to play quite a lot. But yeah, it's been a while since South Africa have lost to Argentina. I think they've only lost once to Argentina in South Africa. That was 2015, so quite some time ago. And yeah, it's been a while since they've played. So we should all be very much looking forward to this one, even if it is on at like 3 a.m. New Zealand time, which is not ideal, but it's the Rugby Championship, man. So we got to be pumped for this one. I believe Andrew Brace is the ref for this one. It's at Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. The Boks are the favourites. Kind of unsurprisingly, the bookies have got them by 9 points. The Rugby Forecast algorithm goes a step further, saying South Africa by 17. 17 seems like a bit much, because Argentina are on a really good run, man. They've only lost to the All Blacks, I think, in recent times. They've beaten the All Blacks, got pretty well beaten by the All Blacks in the second game. 2 draws with Australia. They beat Romania pretty narrowly as they shook off some rust. They drew with Wales, and they beat Wales, albeit without their Lions, but still away from home. So, yeah, they kind of talked in the press conference about having to play away from home in this tournament, but Mario's not looking for any excuses, so he wants these guys to put in a kind of good shift. Talked about the preparation, how they had to go into a bubble when they got to Romania, a bubble in Wales, and then a bubble when they went back home, and then a bubble now in South Africa. So these guys have been kind of isolated for quite some time. It's not an ideal prep, but as we mentioned, they've kind of been there and done that before. So yeah, the head-to-head stuff, Argentina like to kick a lot. I know there's a lot of talk about the South Africans kicking a lot. In their last game against Wales, they kicked 35 times. In comparison, the Springboks kicked like 20 against the Lions in that third game, albeit the Springboks had not that much ball. Whereas Argentina against Wales had the Lions share, but Sanchez is the kind of main guy who does the kicking for Argentina. It's not so much kicking off 9. It's Sanchez who kind of pulls all those strings. That's what I'm talking about, him being kind of that focal point for the stuff they do. And Argentina's discipline against Wales was also really good. They only conceded like 7 penalties, which at international level is very good. But remember, the Springboks are pretty happy to play without the ball as well. So Argentina are going to have to maybe force something to beat that Springboks defence, which has looked pretty tight. They've not conceded a lot of tries. Maul was one that they struggled to defend. That was the only way they were broken, the Springboks. But equally, the Argentinians were able to shut down the Welsh Maul pretty well. They did offload like 11 times against Wales, which is pretty high. But again, they had a lot of ball. They may need to do something a wee bit slick to break the Springboks defence. But either way, man, I'm pretty pumped for this one. It should be a fun watch. You guys can let me know your thoughts on how you think this one's going to go. If you want to jump on the Super Brew poll, now's probably your last chance. Super Brew is that free predictions game. I'll put the link down in the description if you want to sign up to Super Brew. We do predictions. So if you want to know who I think is going to win, it's in the Super Brew pool. Broadcasters, I think it's ESPN in South America, it's SuperSport in South Africa, Stan Sports in Australia, Sky Sports here in New Zealand, Sky UK in the UK. For some folks, I think it's Flow Rugby in the States. Some people are using the VPN into Stan to get a taste of it. Stan is the one in Australia, so if you want to try the VPN and Stan, they got a free trial going. That might be one option, so I'll put the link to Express in the description if you guys want to check out that. But otherwise, guys, should be a pretty entertaining game. You guys let me know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win it? A much changed Springbok side, a pretty stable Argentinian side. Predictions, thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.